Hi guys, in this video we're going to be learning about classes, objects, constructors and methods. A class in Java is basically a template or a blueprint. It defines how an object will behave and what information that object will contain. An object is the output from that template or blueprint. And when we talk about behavior and state, the state is determined by the variables that you declare on the class, and the behavior is determined by the methods that you have on the class. One way to explain classes and objects would be through the example of a car or a vehicle. So you'd have a blueprint before you create the vehicle. You have a blueprint, you have a template, and based off that you create a vehicle. And it's kind of the same analogy. So the blueprint would be the class, the actual produced vehicle or the car would be the object. In our last video we created a class application with a single method on it called main. And we said that this main method is the entry point to the Java application. So every Java app needs to have a main method. Let's reiterate from last time. Public, as you can see here, is an access modifier and it tells the class that it should be accessible from anywhere within the application. Class is the Java reserved keyword in which anything that precedes it is part of that class, and that's the name of the class. Within the class we've got one method and we declare it with public, static, void, main, which is the name. Void means that it doesn't return anything from that method. Static refers to the fact that it belongs to the class rather than belongs to any particular object. And when the method is created, it accepts an array of string values as the arguments. And as part of the method, all we're doing is simply printing out the text, "Hello World James," to the console. So let's go ahead and create a brand new class. So go over to your project window on the left here, right click on Java, new, Java class, and we're going to call it vehicle, following on from the previous example I made with regards to vehicle, and hit class. And now we've got a basic template for a vehicle class. As we said before, a class has state and it has behavior. So this vehicle is going to have particular state, so it's going to have some data values that are appropriate for a vehicle. So let's start with private string make. Private string model and private int number of doors. So this represents the state of the vehicle class. We have a make, a model, and a number of doors. Now, make refers to the make of the vehicle. So for example, Ford or Chevrolet or something like that. Model is the model of the vehicle. Number of doors is a whole number that represents the total number of doors on the vehicle. Notice here how rather than using public, we're using private as the access modifier. We only want these particular variable values to be accessed within this class, and that is a general convention. If you want to retrieve these values from another class, then you'll do so through a method. String is the data type, make is basically going to be a set of characters, and the string data type will allow us to use a set of characters. Same for the model, and the number of doors, as we said, was a whole number, and the data type of int, which is a primitive type as opposed to an object type, such as string, but again, we'll talk more about this in a later video. The next thing we need to do is create a constructor for the class. So public, vehicle, parentheses, and curly brackets. So what is the constructor? The constructor in Java is the first thing that's called as part of the class. So when you have a class that you want to create into an object, or you want to create an object from that class, it will call the constructor. And as the name suggests, it's responsible for constructing the vehicle object. What we're going to do in here is initialize each of these variables with a value. So we're going to say make equals mini. And because it's a string, we need to use quotation marks, and I have the text mini. This is an assignment operator, so in other words, it assigns the right-hand side to the left-hand side, and the value make refers to the variable name here. And we're going to do a similar thing for the model, so model equals Cooper, and a semicolon. So any statement in Java requires a semicolon at the end of the line, in the same way that we have a semicolon for each of these three lines. Finally, number of doors. So Also note as well with IntelliJ that as you start typing it out, it will try to auto-complete it for you. I'm just going to hit enter and it'll auto-complete that for me. Equals 4. So this is a Mini Cooper with 4 doors. And the next thing that we want to do is when we create an instance of the vehicle class, all we want to do is to be able to retrieve each of these 3 values, the make, the model, and the number of doors, and display them in the console. And as we said, we cannot access the make, the model, and the number of doors directly because we've set them as private. So you can't access these straight away. What we need to do is create a method that's public that returns these particular values. Underneath here, we're going to create a method. So right underneath the constructor, we're going to type out public, so it's accessible from the application class. If I return to that, and I've just returned to it on the tab here, we'll be able to access the method from this application class. Now let's return to the vehicle. String get make. And again, IntelliJ tries to auto-complete it for me. Return make. And underneath that, we're going to have another one, public string get model, parentheses, brackets, return model. And finally, public int, this time not string because it's number of doors, so get number of doors, parentheses, brackets, return number of doors. So in Java, these are commonly known as getter methods. They are getting a particular value of a variable and returning it from the object. So let's go through the methods. Public, as we said, is an access modifier. String is the return type, and we are returning make, and make is of type string. So this needs to be set to string. The name of the method, getMake, and generally a getter method in Java will follow that convention of get and then the variable name. Also note as well with Java methods is that we use camel case naming. So the first letter of the first word is lowercase, every subsequent word is uppercase, in the same way that we do for the variables here. Lowercase n for number, and every subsequent word will be an uppercase. And return in Java is a reserved keyword where you're simply declaring what you want to return from that method. So now let's return to our application class. And let's delete this line. And I'm going to type out vehicle equals new vehicle. Semicolon at the end. And then we're going to do a print out statement. So S out, and this is the IntelliJ shorthand, as we said. Hit enter, and it will create the system out print line statement. I'm going to have a string here, and I'm going to say vehicle make, leave a space. I'm going to put a colon there as well, plus vehicle dot. And you can see now that we have access to the 3 methods, get number of doors, get model, and get make. So let's say get make, and this vehicle here is the vehicle variable here. With this particular line here, we are declaring a variable called vehicle, and it's of type vehicle, and we're instantiating that to be a new vehicle. And if we go back to our vehicle class, when that gets instantiated, it will hit this particular constructor. So it will hit this public vehicle, it will set the make to mini, it will set the model to Cooper, and it will set the number of doors to 4. And let's return to our application class. And we need 2 more system out print line statements. So vehicle model plus vehicle dot get model. And finally, vehicle number of doors. Colon, leave a plus again, vehicle dot get number of doors. So now let's run the application and see what happens. So I'm going to hit the play button up here, and you can see it's printed out to the console, vehicle make mini, vehicle model Cooper, and vehicle number of doors 4. And let's just reiterate what happened there. So we set up a brand new vehicle. We go through to the vehicle class, and it sets the values as mini, Cooper, with a number of doors of 4. Once that's instantiated, this variable vehicle will contain all those values. And once we call the get method for each of the three, so get make, get model, and get number of doors, when we call get make, it will return the make, and that make is the value here, which now has the value mini. Same for model, so we get the model, which returns this value here, which we've set to Cooper. And number of doors, we return the number of doors from this value here, so it's this variable here. We set it to 4 with the assignment operator, which sets the number of doors to 4 there, and then we return it. Now let's try something slightly different. Let's go to our vehicle class, and you can see here that when we create an instance of the vehicle class, we're always setting the make, the model, and the number of doors to fixed values. So let's create a way that when we create an instance of the vehicle, we can set it to whatever make, model, and number of doors we want to. And to do that, we need to create a second constructor, and you can have as many constructors as you need in a class. Public vehicle string make string model int number of doors. Created another constructor with the name vehicle. However, this time we're providing 3 parameters as part of the constructor, whereas here we're not providing any. What we need to do now is pass this value of make to the value within the class. This dot make equals make. This dot model equals model. And this dot number of doors equals number of doors. So now, once we create an instance of the vehicle class and we decide that we want to use this constructor instead of this one, when we pass the make in, it will pass it to here, and we said that this was an assignment operator, so it will pass it from the right hand side to the left. This dot make refers to the make here, and then we can return it from here. Let's instantiate another vehicle class. I'm going to leave some space and I'm going to type vehicle new vehicle equals new vehicle. So I can leave it as it is, and it would by default use the same constructor as last time. But I can also provide it with some parameters, in which case it will try to use this particular constructor. So let's do that. If I hit Command P on my keyboard, it brings up the parameters for the method. So string make, string model, and number of doors. So the first parameter is make, so I'm going to have quotation marks because it's a string, and we're going to say Ford, leave a comma. The next one is model, which again is a string, so Mustang. And the final one is an int, so we don't need quotation marks for the int, we just need to write whatever int we want, which in this case I'm going to use 2. So it's a 2-door Ford Mustang. Now let's have 3 more print statements, so we now print out the vehicle make, the model, and the number of doors for our new vehicle, as opposed to previously where we used that vehicle. S out, new vehicle, make, plus new vehicle dot get make. And I can type these out again, but what I'm going to do is hit Command D on my keyboard while the cursor is on this line, and I can duplicate the lines 2 times. I'm going to change that to model, and I'm going to change that to number of doors. On the second line here, I'm going to change get make to be get model, because we need the model, and number of doors here, so I'm going to do get number of doors. Now let's run the application again. And you can see here that we've got our existing printout statements here, but our new ones are Ford, Mustang, and number of doors 2. Now let's return to the vehicle class. You can see here that we're using 3 particular methods on the vehicle class. We're using get make, get model, and get number of doors. And these are collectively known as getter methods. In other words, we're retrieving something from the object. The other key type of method in Java is the setter method. So let's try setting a particular value. So let's go back to our application class. What we're going to do for the new vehicle is that we are going to set it with Ford, Mustang, and number of doors 2, and we're going to print those out. Right after that, we're then going to change the number of doors. So we're going to override the number of doors values to something like 4. So in this case, we've decided to change our mind from it being a 2-door Ford Mustang to a 4-door Ford Mustang. So let's return to vehicle, and I'm going to create another method, public. This time I'm going to use void, so this basically means that we're not returning anything from the method. Because we don't need to return anything, we're simply setting it rather than getting. And I'm going to call it set, and as you can see, when I start typing, IntelliJ actually brings up some options for me. And we're going to say set number of doors with parentheses, and we're going to set a new number of doors. So int number of doors as a parameter. So we require a value of type int when we want to call the set number of doors method. And we're simply going to do this dot number of doors equals number of doors. Let's return to our application class, and right underneath it I'm going to do new vehicle dot set number of doors, and we're going to set that to be 4. And then we're going to do another printout statement, so s out, hit enter, and this is the updated number of doors. Leave a colon and a space, plus new vehicle dot get number of doors. So let's just reiterate what we've done here. We've instantiated a new vehicle. We're passing in each of the values that we want to set it up with. So Ford, Mustang, and number of doors 2. We get the number of doors at this point, which, as you can see down here, is 2. So that printout statement specifically refers to this one here. What we're now going to do is override the number of doors with a value of 4. So let's go back to vehicle, and with the set number of doors here will be 4 for the number of doors value, which gets passed here and assigned to this dot number of doors, which is the value here. When we call the getter method, so get number of doors, it's going to return number of doors, which refers to this one here, which we said we've set as 4. So let's run the application, and you can see here now updated number of doors is 4 rather than 2. And all we've done is call the setter method on the new vehicle object. So that's everything for this video. Thank you very much for listening, and I really hope you found it useful. If you did, then please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe.